Hello, Python coder. Here's a solution to the Chapter 6 preparation program. We start off with FileMaker, and of course we have our pseudocode. So what we're going to do is we're going to open a file in write mode. The file is going to be called friends.txt, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to write names and ages to that file. Each piece of data on its own line in the file. That's an important feature that we want to see. Okay, so I'm not going to read the pseudocode to you. I've tried to show you by indenting the statements that are going to be inside the loop. We're going to be using a while loop. And the while loop is going to run as long as we don't enter an empty string. When we're prompted for the name of one of our friends, when we press enter, that will assign an empty string to the name, and we'll use that to control the loop. We'll stop the loop when the name is an empty string. All right, so here we have the open function, and we're going to open the file called friends.txt in write mode. That's the W. And we're assigning that to F. F is a file object. Now, an object is a special type of structure in coding, and it's special because it has methods that belong to it. And as we're going to see, the file object F here has a write method, which we can use to write data to the file. So first thing we're going to do is open that file in write mode. Then here's the very important step. We have to have something to test for a while loop. A while loop is a pre-test loop. So we have to have something to test, and that is going to be the variable name that we're going to prompt the user to enter. So once the user enters a name, then we'll ask the user to enter the age of that friend's name. And of course, that's going to require int and input. And then we're going to write the name to the file. And then finally, we're going to write the age to the file. Now, an important feature here is that all of your input and output with files works with strings. You write strings to the file, and later on, as we're going to see, we're going to read strings from the file. Your input and output is with strings. So we've got to convert the int back into a string with the str function. And then by appending \n to both the name and the age, that will ensure that each name and age is on its own line in the file. A very important feature is right here. I call it the continuation input. And it's an exact copy of the line up here, which I call the priming input. It's an exact copy, but this one is in the loop, right? This one is the last statement inside the loop. And that's what will determine if the loop is going to keep cycling or not. Once we've entered all the names and ages and written them to the file, we have to close the file and just announce that something has happened with a simple print. Now, I've already run this program, and I want you to see what I entered here. Here's what I entered. I entered these names and these ages, and then on the last time I was prompted here, I just pressed enter. And that made this false, made this expression false. So that stopped the loop, and then the file was closed, and we got this message here. Okay, so that's the first part. That's the FileMaker program. Now in part 2, we want to read that file, and we want to report the names of our friends and their ages, but we also want to determine the average age of our friends. So let's take a look at that. Here's that second file. It's called File Reader. I'll just close this one first. File Reader. Here it is. And what File Reader does, File Reader is also going to use the open function to open the file, but we're going to open it in read mode now, R for read mode. Now, because we want to find the average, well, if you want to find the average of some values, you have to add up the total of those values and divide by the number of the values, right? So we need both an accumulator and a counter in order to calculate the average age of the friends that it's in the file. So we've got total equals 0 and count equals 0. Okay, it's important that accumulators and counters, you always initialize them to a value of 0. Now, we're going to read a line out of the file by using our file object f and the readLine function. The readLine function will read a line out of the file and assign it to the variable name. Now, we do know that the first line in the file is a name. By the way, here's the actual file structure that was created by the program that we ran in part 1. You'll notice that we have names and ages, each on their own line in the file. And I want you to notice something very important at the bottom of this file. I think you can see a flashing cursor underneath the 19. So this file ends with a blank line. Well, that's very important because that's how we're going to determine that we've got to the end of the file. When we attempt to read a name and we read it as an empty string, that last line being a blank line, we'll read it as an empty string, and that'll stop the loop. So that's how we know we finished reading the file. Now, we have to remove the \n from the name. So we do that with rstrip. Rstrip means strip from the right end of the string. So strip from the right end of the string the \n. Then we have to read the next line out of the file and convert it into an integer because we want to do some arithmetic with that. Remember, all of your input and output is with strings. So if you want to do some math, you have to convert that string into an integer, int type in this case. And then we'll print out using an f string the name of our friend and the friend's age. Notice we have the name and the age and the placeholders here. Now here's where we do the accumulation. I'll actually just put a comment in here. This is the accumulation happening. And down here, this is where we're counting. We add 1 to the counter, we increase the total by the age of our friend. Okay, counts always go up by 1, as we know from watching Sesame Street. And now we have to read the next line in the file. So what I would like you to see is this is an exact copy of this line up here. So this is, again, this is the priming read, and this is the continuation read. Same idea as we had in the program 1. You'll always want, when you're using a while loop, you're always going to have a line like this at the end of the loop. And it must be the last line in the loop, by the way. So after we've read all the names and ages and added them up and counted them, we'll close the file, then we'll work out the average, which will be the total divided by the count, and then we'll print that out here. And we ran that as well earlier. And here's the output. And as you can see, we did get the we got the names and ages, and it turns out the average is 20. There you have it.